everyone for attending. And public comment. Do we have anyone on?
Frank, do you see anybody?
We have Chris Conway. That's it. I mean, that's enough, but.
We're always happy to see Chris.
Yeah. All right. Meeting minutes. We have, Don, correct me if I'm wrong, August 8th and August 22nd to approve.
That's correct. Correct.
Has everyone had a chance to get back to Don? Any motion?
No, I
Happy
didn't
to
see
make
anything.
happy to make a motion on August 8th and August 22nd as presented if there are no amendments.
Okay,
Second.
second.
I'll second it.
All right, Frank.
Aye.
Okay, Brian,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Geetha,
Aye.
John Siciliano,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
John Miller.
Abstain. I missed them.
Okay, and Don.
Aye.
Lisa.
Right.
Lisa, aye.
Yeah, you second. I had for Lisa. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Thank
Jay.
you. Yep.
All right,
No, that's
thanks.
fine. I was checking it off. All right. Moving on. Next, committee vacancies. So Dawn and I have been reappointed. Colleen, did you hear back yet?
Yep, I'm
And you're
in.
reappointed. And
Yep.
how about John? Did you hear back?
I did, yeah. I'm all
Okay.
set.
So the four of us have been reappointed. We have a full, well, almost a full committee. We're missing a alternate from the select board. I guess they have someone in mind, but has not been vetted yet and sent to us. That being said, now that we have everyone's terms are up to date, I'm putting out there, does anyone want to be chair? And we should also select a vice chair, which we never had because we never had the committee at full. And I was waiting to do that. And I'm kind of pushing it tonight because I do have to get off at 7 tonight. So it's a good time to get someone else on board. And also select secretary, which Dawn has been doing for quite a long time and doing a great job at it.
So
we
Jay,
put-
I want to make a motion and express thanks for everything you've been doing so far and that I know you'll continue to do. I would happily make a motion that you continue to serve as chair and just really appreciate everything you're putting into this project.
Thank you.
Second.
I second that. And this is Lisa.
Okay.
Just a comment. We need to determine what the duration should be, maybe for the duration of his term or, 2 years, at least 2 years. I mean, not, in the past, being the longest continuously member of this committee, continuous member of the committee, we used to have a vice chair. And I think it was every other year we reelect the officers and it was always the same in the past. So we should probably select a duration 2 or 3 years for Jay's term and then have that be the same for the vice chair. And that.
Well, so that's a good point, Don. I think given the length of the length of the project and that, Jay's just been appointed, for a 3-year term, I would be happy to call it a 3-year appointment. He can always cry uncle when he wants to.
Yeah.
If somebody else wants to step up. I don't know if Lisa's still okay with that and wants to second that.
I second that. I think that's great.
Okay, then
That's if Jay wants to do all this hard work and everything and everybody. I have to say this committee is very good. I'm on many committees, but this is a very good one. I have to tell everybody. So that's it. I'll
Thank
be
you.
quiet
It is
now.
a great team. Great team.
Yeah.
All right. And a vice chair?
we have a motion on the floor. We probably should vote
Yeah, we have
that.
to vote it, right?
Okay, want to vote one at a time, right?
Let's vote
All right.
that.
So this would be for me as chair and can we, the 3-year term together or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good, yeah.
Frank,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye. Thanks for all the hard work, Jay.
thank you. Todd,
Aye.
Geetha,
Aye.
John Siciliano,
Thank you.
okay, Colleen,
Happily, aye.
Chris, motion, Mark,
Aye.
John Miller,
Aye.
and Don.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
And I guess there's another very busy person on the committee who's been on both the school committee and literally been acting as Jay's right-hand guy, going through all this. So I guess I'd like to nominate Chris as vice chair unless someone else would like to step up and take that position.
I'd second that.
I did,
For
yeah,
the
I
same-
would too.
Same term, the
Same term, yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
Might as well. Well,
I'm all for 3, yep.
This is Miller. I was going to suggest Mark Scott. But I think Chris, I don't know, Chris, do you get crosswise sometimes, or is there ever any problem?
No, I just have less and less hair. Eventually I'll run out. So it might be a 2-year term for me instead of 3, but I'm good. I work very closely with Jay, as I think you know, and Meg and the design team, as well as Frank, and happily give him that support. So I'm happy to do it. I have no aspiration to be chair. It's just simply to be in that supporting role.
And you're a big help, believe me. Thank you. So we'll do a roll call for that also. Frank,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Geetha,
Aye.
John Siciliano,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Mark second, John Miller. Well, actually, Don, Mark, you second, right? Yes,
Yeah.
I would make a note of that, and motion by Don. John Miller,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you, Chris. 3 more
Thank
years
you,
ahead of
Jay. So I want to make another motion, which is to appoint, we need officially a recording secretary. Don has been doing it for 47 years and would love to see him continue. Seriously, he's been doing this like ever since I set foot in an EFPBC room. He works very closely with Frida and pulling the minutes together and is really good about staying on top of all this stuff. So if Don would be willing to continue to do so, I would happily make a motion that Don be our recording secretary for the EFPBC for 3 years.
I second that.
All right. Second.
Yeah.
I would only make it contingent upon somebody replacing me at the end of the term, okay? Somebody else have a shot at this.
I know you tried to quit once already on us, Don.
It didn't work, yeah.
Didn't work.
They keep bringing me back in.
Well, that's because you do a stellar job. That's why.
Well, it's with the support of Frida, so let's not forget Frida.
And Frida too.
That's right.
Excellent to putting down the gist of all these meetings and it's a big help. It's a big help to me to get all this done.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call on that also. And Frank?
And I've never seen this committee more excited to nail down 3 positions.
Gotta
3
catch
quickest
them while they're
votes
hot,
and
right?
Great big smiles on everyone's faces. Relief.
Yeah. Lisa,
Yes.
Brian,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Geetha,
Oh, I second that and I, yeah.
yes, and myself, John Siciliano,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Chris was motion, Mark,
Aye.
John Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. That was great to get this out of the way. Feel like an official committee now with term limits and everything. The years are counting down. All right, moving on to Lynch.
And Jay, speaking of counting down, you have 44 minutes and then
I
you turn into
know.
a pumpkin, right?
Hard break.
Okay.
And that meeting's worse than this one, so not looking forward to it. Construction costs, TAPE.
Good evening. So I think my role here is I think Hill is going to talk really about sort of the project budget process and what you're going to be voting on. I was just going to give a brief update on the sort of estimating process and the reconciliation process. So we get an estimate from our estimator. And Hill gets an estimate from their estimator, and they're inevitably not precisely identical, nor do they have to be, but the MSBA expects them to be within a reasonable range of each other. So we do a reconciliation, of course, which many of you already are familiar with the process. But That meant getting on a Zoom call with not only PM&C and AM Fogarty, but also their consultants. They have site specialists, they have MEP, FP specialists, as well as being in touch with our consultants so that we could clarify questions. And we did that last Thursday morning. It was a full, 4-hour plus meeting. And at the end of it, we reconciled the two estimates to something very close to each other, which is what the MSBA is looking for. So that was very encouraging. It's always encouraging when that happens at this level because we don't have that much detail in these drawings. Of course, it gets, obviously they tend to merge, these estimates merge more the further you go. And then of course, there's always some differences in opinions about certain costs, but generally I think there was agreement among the estimators. There was generally agreement about scope. We did, in the interest of trying to, so sometimes you're adding, sometimes you're subtracting. We did try to clarify scope as best we could that could come out in order to try to control costs. We clarified the scope of the underslab insulation and how much we needed. We clarified quantities of fenestration. The estimate had more windows than we actually needed. Windows and curtain wall are expensive. We reduced that. None of this is going to be particularly noticeable, I think, to the naked eye. We didn't dramatically change the design. We did go from triple glazing to double glazing as a starting point. We had started with triple glazing because it's more efficient, but as estimators pointed out, it's staggeringly expensive. We did check in with our sustainability consultant who said that their model suggested that we would be able to reach all the goals we wanted to reach with double glazing. So we switched to double glazing all around. We did remove most of the roof screens that we had shown with the thought that hopefully we don't have any abutters that are so close that we're going to create noise issues. We will have to analyze that in a future phase to make sure that acoustical consultant will do that analysis for us. But we did keep some, so we took out 80%. We wanted to keep the low roof screen anyway, because you might see that one more. We felt like with a 3-story building, we probably could get away with sightlines that didn't require these roof screens aesthetically. And it really, it's more an acoustic issue usually, but the neighbors are pretty far away here. We put the safety rails that had been requested on the roofs below the line. So they still exist, but they're not in the base number anymore, trying to get a little cost out. We reduced some of the wood look ceilings. We still kept a lot, but we took some of them out, which I think will be okay. We won't notice it too much. And we did make some modifications to landscape. We took out some trees, we took out some unit pavers. We tried to clarify scope there. So all in all, I think we held on to the gist of the building. I see your hand is up, Mark. As soon as I come up for air, you can ask a question. The bottom line is we're coming up with sort of a $67 million construction cost. We were at a $61.5 million construction cost. So we are seeing about a 10% increase over the PSR estimate, and Andy and Vivian will go further into the whole project costs and all of that. That's about a 10% increase. That seems to be not inconsistent with what we're seeing, in the industry. We pressed the estimators about this, and one of them, the comment was, well, some projects are seeing 10% a month and we've had 5 months here. So it's unfortunate, but I think it's the reality of the marketplace. We've carried a 10% design contingency in this estimate, which is a pretty decent hedge. And we've carried a 5% escalation to bid. So there's 15% of this is sort of unidentified. And if we get lucky, maybe some of that will come back in the form of lowered costs. But we think in this volatile market, we kind of have to have those protections right now. So we feel pretty good about the scoping exercise. We're sorry that the costs have gone up like this. It was no surprise. None of the professionals were falling out of their chairs. This just seemed to be where we got to. So with that, Mark, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted one thing to note on escalation, I mean, we've been on projects in my office, we've been seeing anything from 9 to 11 or more % a year in escalation. So, I mean, we're talking about 3/4 of a point a month. So it's not unexpected that the costs have gone up just based on that. Two items. One is on triple glazing. So we do a lot of triple glazing, and one of the areas where we find potential cost savings is actually usually when we do triple glazing, we don't have to do perimeter radiation for thermal comfort, and that's where we get the savings. Is we're not buying perimeter radiation and we're buying the glass. In a project of this scope, with the windows of the sizes that they are, it may not be as applicable, but that's just something I wanted to note in case that's something that you could sort of test with your MEP consultants and with the cost estimators. Doesn't have to be now, but maybe as you get into design development. And the second thing is the roof screens. It sounds like you were anticipating that they were both visual and acoustical.
That's what we were anticipating initially, yeah.
Okay, but you could get acoustical housing. I mean, much like you could for a generator, you can get acoustical housings for air handlers if you found that you needed some acoustical attenuation, right?
Right. So I think if we discover in design development that we have an issue with the butters and distance to property lines, we're going to have to figure that out, which we will.
Okay, great. And then the last thing is knowing that you're really at this schematic phase. Do you feel like you and the rest of your team at TAPE have the budget available to at least provide you with enough freedom to actually finish designing the building, a project that you're going to be proud of and a project that we're going to be proud of? I don't want you guys to be squeezing yourselves to the point that you feel like you cannot make a good project. So I just wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah, no, I think we're comfortable with where we are. I mean, we're as comfortable as you can be in this incredibly uncomfortable marketplace and situation, which is so volatile that, as I keep saying, it's like a house of mirrors. I mean, we just can't, every time we turn around, something else is happening that we didn't anticipate. So, I trust PM&C. They've always been great. They're doing their very best, as is AM Fogarty, to read the tea leaves. I think all we can do is move onwards, and hope we can manage the process and hope the economy is a little bit more helpful to us in a year.
All right, we have John Miller and then Geetha. John?
Just a quick question. Is for Vivian too, Charlie. Do you have enough detail in the schematic design to identify, long lead items or problem items for scheduling? And in other words, are you along far enough in the details to identify, scheduling issues or some scheduling issues? Are you hearing anything about scheduling problems?
Well, yes. Right now, today, there's scheduled problems all over the industry, and they're pretty ferocious. What we will see in a year, we're not sure, but I mean, we know that we're having trouble with rooftop units. We know we're having trouble with all things electrical, like switchgear. We know we're having trouble with glass and aluminum windows. We know that, there's recent talk about problems with drywall. I mean, and steel has been an issue. So all of those have been delivery issues. But we're hoping that we've left enough duration here in the schedule already that, I assume your question is, should we be accounting for any acceleration or anything unique like that? And we don't think so. The estimators didn't think so.
If you also recall, John, we did vote recently to change the project timeline on when it would be going out to vote, in hopes that we will be allowing for some earlier to get the bid out.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on schematic design, and the world's so crazy right now that maybe a schematic design needs a little more definition to get comfortable about schedule. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, the MSBA does us no favors by making the whole project hinge on schematic design, but it is what it is.
No, This is ridiculous.
Keitha?
All right, I have a quick question, Charlie and Jay. I guess is there a reason taking the escalation only up to the bid date as opposed to considering what's happening around at least to the midpoint of construction? And then I thought on top, the 4%, 5% escalation is typically a norm in the past. I thought on top of this, isn't there an additional percentage to be added? That's sort of the.
So their unit pricing is also escalated.
Okay.
So they've got escalation in two places.
Okay, all right.
And typically in the past, Gita, we never carried about 5% escalation. We sometimes carried like 3% escalation. So the 5% is already an inflated amount. And as Charlie also mentioned, there's also an escalation or inflation within the line items itself. So we don't want to overinflate it either, where now the project doesn't become feasible.
Okay.
And as far as carrying it to the bid, since this is a hard bid, they're going to buy the job really from their subcontractors the day that the bid is submitted.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as our contractually we are able to sign a contract with them in a timely manner, which I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, there would be no reason to carry additional.
Okay. I have one other question. Maybe I want to phrase it in such a way. Is the cost is sort of broken down now? At least we could get a maybe 10,000 feet or 1,000 feet high of perception of what would be the, site improvement cost or site drainage cost based on the information that we know of. And do we have a sense, is it staying within the budget of MSBA would refund to us? Reasonable assumptions are made, that would satisfy the neighbors surrounding us as well, and especially when we go to the NOI permit and drainage improvement. I just wanted to put it in an overarching thing and wanted to get some idea. Do we have enough budget that that the drainage improvements would be taken care of?
We believe we do. It's certainly over the MSBA cap. No school project in Massachusetts does a project that's under their site cap because you can't, and they're intentional about that, and they tell you that because their view is we're not going to have an apples to oranges thing where we have one school that has a giant site package and wants to do fields and another one it just needs a parking lot. So we just set an artificially low cap and the rest is on the owner. So we're not going to ever get under the MSBA site cap for reimbursement. But I think we feel comfortable that the drawings are far enough along that we've captured reasonably captured site scope.
For example, for whatever reason, I just want to throw this, Charlie, it could very well be, let's say, being kids around and safety perception, if the rain garden or the dry well isn't going to work, if everything has to be turned into underground storage, is there enough budget that's going into the override? That kind of a thing. I just wanted to ask that. And then especially, being in the sensitive, I don't keep on saying that, it has to be at a certain high elevation separation and whatnot. It's all tucked in here, at least based on the information that we know of, that we have enough budget. And then.
Well, we believe we do. The estimators believe we do. We also have a robust design contingency, and that's what it's there for. We anticipate that the design contingency over the course of the estimates will get kind of absorbed into the project. That's what typically happens. And I imagine it may happen here as well. So that design contingency is an important hedge against scope that may mature in terms of our understanding of it and change some. But I think that's how we manage these projects, is to have a design contingency.
Yeah, the design plus construction, right? Because it's going into the override, right? We want to have enough.
The design
cost.
contingency is part of the hard cost of the construction estimate. There's also, on top of that, a construction contingency, but the design contingency is actually in the estimate. And theoretically, it will be absorbed within the construction cost estimate. In other words, it will go from 10% now to, 7% or 6% at CD, 60% CD to, 4% at whatever. It ends up being like 2% when we get to 90% CDs, or 1% or something like that. So that contingency is just getting used up as we go along by developing the hard cost detail further. And that's really customary. That's how they go. So that's what we would expect to have happen here.
All right, I'll hold it on the rest for the remaining.
Okay. You all set, Charlie?
I am.
All right. So Vivian,
Sure.
all yours.
So as we've been discussing let me just. There we go. So is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I wanted today to kind of present to you the projected project cost. As we discussed and Charlie mentioned, the new Lynch Elementary School has been reconciled by the two cost estimators, and we've landed close in line with one another and holding a $65 million budget for the new Lynch Elementary. In addition to this, there is about roughly $2 million cost for the abatement and demolition of the existing school, and the work that is needed at the Parkhurst along with the modulars. With that, we've also included soft cost fees. So the $12 million that you see here in front of you are soft costs. And what do the soft costs kind of pertain or include as part of it? Those are your OPM fees, the architectural and engineering fees. It includes moving, as well as the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and all the technology that is earmarked for this project. In addition, we also have contingencies. As Charlie mentioned, the design contingency is part of the hard cost or the construction cost of $65 million, where we're holding 10% at the moment, and that percentage will decrease as the project is developed and we get further and further along from design development to construction documents and out to bid. But in addition, we're also holding construction contingency and an owner contingency totaling $8 million. This includes a 10% construction contingency that we've mentioned in the past on other project meetings, as well as a 1% for the owner. Typically, the owner is less at the 1% only because we don't anticipate, once we've gone through the entire design process, we don't anticipate having any more changes to the project, and majority of which will be construction related. So a 10% construction contingency is a fairly hefty and healthy budget. In addition, we also have testing and allowances. Some of these include the hazmat, geotech, geoenvironmental, some site surveys, any agencies that have the jurisdiction, permitting, traffic studies, utilities, and all of your testing services such as concrete, compaction, steel, window testing that we might have. Now we're projecting the MSBA grant to be close to 19 million of a grant. This is very much kind of at this stage, and at this point, we do not have confirmation from the MSBA, but based on the 3011 sheet that they have us complete to submit during the ST submission, we're hoping that we will be close to the $19 million grant. That leaves you a projected net project cost of $75 million. But please do bear in mind that this also, the $75 million, includes the feasibility and schematic design that was already appropriated previously, and that you have funded and allocated the funds for, and that we already even, I believe, have a slight surplus in. I'll pause for a second. I see several hands up, and
You have Mark, Colleen, Brian, and Don.
Yeah, Mark, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, so I want to understand what, just to make sure that we're all sharing the same language when we're talking about these contingencies. I'm confused about what the construction contingency is and what is included in that, because typically I would not see a construction contingency in the below the line values on a project. I would see it in the construction cost, and there would be an owner's contingency, but it would be only for anticipated change management on the project.
So-
That's what this is anticipated change management. So this is, for-
10%?
yeah, that's high, right? But
That's
this is another one.
extraordinarily high.
Correct. So, but this is another one of these hedges, right?
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure, the reason I ask is I want to make sure that we are not double dipping or double accounting for our contingencies, because there's a design and estimating contingency in the schematic design construction cost right now, 10%. If we add another 10% contingency on what's effectively a design contingency, I just want to make sure that we are not, we're not doubling up, because 10% is a huge amount. I mean, if we got 10% change orders on this project, that would be extremely bad.
Yeah. So we tend to be on, I don't want to say what we tend to be because it's a lot lower than that. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. However, you're correct. It should be less than half of that. And
Yeah, 2 to 5% would be what I would expect.
That's correct. And that's true. However, I think the view was, because of volatility in the marketplace, this offers a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of kind of cushion. And it could, for instance, if we get high bids, you could dip into the construction contingency to do the project, as a for instance. So given everyone's feeling anxious about where the market is and where it's going, and there's a lot of unknowns, I think that the view was this was probably a sensible hold to put in for unknowns.
It's not about it. Jay, do you think we can see the cost estimate after reconciliation so much more broken down, which came from the two estimators as well?
Oh, you will. When they're ready to submit, everyone will get the copy will be available page by page. It's very detailed.
Yes, because especially as Mark said, the contingencies are, in a correct place. Okay, all right.
Colleen?
It's not letting me unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh.
Good. Okay. So the additional reimbursement from the MSBA, I'm assuming, is not factored into the grant.
This is what do you mean additional reimbursement?
For the energy targets, the heightened energy targets.
This is included in that because as part of figuring out the projected MSBA grant, you also have to have a maintenance facilities point in addition to the energy for it being a green building. We've already anticipated 2% or 2 points for this project being a green building, and included about 1.5% for the maintenance. So, and on top of the 32.4748, that is the projected reimbursement rate. So typically your project reimbursement rate was close to 32.47, which was the reimbursement rate. We added a 3.47 total incentive points, which includes 2 points for green energy or for the project being highly energy efficient, as well as a 1.45 for the maintenance. This obviously has to be validated by the MSBA, but those were taken into consideration and factor in coming up with the MSBA grant.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So in other words, that pushes up the reimbursement rate, we think close to 36%, but to be confirmed by MSBA.
Yes.
Don?
Yeah, just a question on system startup and training of DPW workers and training on maintenance. Is that included in the testing and allowances 1 million number that you have there?
So the training is included, and that is part of the scope, as well as meeting and coordinating with all of the departments. The testing and allowances, the testing that is there is more of testing services to make sure that the steel, for example, steel testing, window testing, compaction testing, as well as some of the other testings that we'll need. It's not necessarily for the internal people to, for, you know, like
No,
DPW.
I understand that. I'm talking about system startup, making sure everything works,
Mhm.
everything is tuned. Is that included in one of these numbers?
Yes, that will be
It's-
part of commissioning.
Yeah.
And that is, the commissioning is provided by the MSBA as a service.
But where does it show up here?
It
They
doesn't.
carry the cost.
Okay, I'll hold for my turn, but I guess, Jay, I think it would be nice. We also see the template that Hill would be filling out. That would answer Don's question too. The MSBA template sort of broken down. Yes, we can see the commissioning line item cost, and is it clearly shown coming from the owner, I think. And so to speak, so I think it would be nice if we can also see that.
Yeah. No,
Everything will be available once it's ready.
yes, Geeta,
Right.
but Don,
Okay.
just for your, just to kind of further elaborate, as part of being included in the MSBA grant program, MSBA provides the commissioning. So you as a district don't have to carry that cost in your budget because it will be provided to you as a service. And MSBA actually identifies who the commissioning agent will be. And we work with them.
Okay, I just want to make sure it gets done because
Oh, no, it
seems to be a problem, you know, with balancing, you know, one side of the school with the other side. You know, the sun comes up in the morning and it sets in the afternoon, and building the building management system, and you know, at some point, I assume Chris will jump in on this, or Peter. You know, we have a standard. I assume we still use a standard building management system, and you know, we don't want to introduce a new third or fourth system into operating the building, because their people are trained on how to operate that we do have. So it's something you're going to have to deal with. It's going to have to be dealt with down the road, and when bids are put out.
absolutely.
All right, John Miller was waiting. John?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. The 19 million, I heard Chris say it was 36% of what? The of the $65 million number?
No, it includes the 65 as well as the soft costs, as well as the contingencies, the testing and allowances, and the abatement.
So, but 19 seems quite a bit less than 30. It's like less than 30%.
Right.
Or am I just doing the math wrong?
No, you're
So,
doing it right, John.
but that's for a later day. But then the other point, I think when we talked last about Parkhurst and modulars and, you know, all that stuff last spring, Frank was going to wait. Frank, I think you were properly waiting until you saw enrollments in the fall to see how things shook out grade wise and what things were going to look like. I'm hoping that $5.5 million number is a placeholder that we can beat.
I'm hoping you're right.
Okay, good.
Enrollment,
okay,
we are up. We are up a couple hundred students over last year. So as of right now, obviously it's a little bit touch and go with enrollment, given the fact that school doesn't start with kids until Wednesday. But while I believe that we will have some classrooms potentially to access, we also have to figure out the preschool program, which occupies the entire ground level right now too. So I think 12 is a, I mean, I don't think that site can handle more than 12. I wouldn't want more than 12. I would suggest if we got to that point, we'd have to really talk about figuring out something else. But But I think we are at 12 right now in terms of giving an estimate for this submission.
I think to answer John's question, most importantly, that's just an estimate that they throw out for the portable units. It does have to be designed and bid. So we would hope it's a high, I would think, Charlie, right?
We don't know for sure. I mean, unfortunately, there's a reasonable chunk of that is site development.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, you got to remember, this is not just about leasing modulars. This is also about creating a brand new parking lot. It's about creating walkways. It's about tying in utilities. It may be about stormwater management. There are a host of issues that are actually, unfortunately, kind of required even on a temporary basis.
That's my point, Charlie. That's not my point. Let's not just run into site development and doing all kinds of stuff before we giving Frank a chance to figure out, okay, are there some creative things that maybe we can get down to 8 modulars, or maybe we can do something else.
Well, the reality is whether we do 8 modulars.
I'm hoping that's still on the table.
With whether we do 8 modulars or 30 modulars, we're going to have site development costs and utility costs.
Okay, well, okay. Yeah, fine. I get it. You guys you're marching in a direction. That's fine. We'll see how that goes. Okay.
Well, can I add though, John?
Internally, John, I mean, we're going to continue to work the problem. I mean, it's pretty early right now for us to say this is where our enrollment is trending. And I think, we've talked about, at the school committee level anyway, talked about doing another full-scale enrollment study, which I think is the right thing to do, the smart thing to do. And I would suggest that the committee might take action on authorizing that this fall, not to speak for the committee, Mr. Nixon.
Yeah, I was just
All
going to
I'm
add
saying is I'm hoping
John.
that's the placeholder and our minds are open. That's all. That's all.
And I think I answered that. It is a placeholder from our perspective. We wouldn't go past 12, so it's the high-end placeholder from our perspective on the number of units. I can't speak to the site costs, obviously, but we'll continue to work the problem.
I was just going to add, in terms of direction, it's the right direction. 12's not 14 and it's not 16. So Frank's been working hard on this, John, and he continues to do so.
I know.
Down to 10, that's great.
I know. I respect it.
As well.
I like it. I know that.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the contingencies, particularly that construction contingency, just so I understand, are we, at this point in time, with this snapshot, are we trying to get to the maximum value that we could possibly consider for the sake of establishing a number to give to the town to set the upper limit for our borrowing? Or are we actually trying to define the anticipated project cost?
Maybe both.
Yes, I want to say
most projects do return some money.
We need to get
In other words, they don't borrow, they don't return it. They don't borrow fully on the total amount. But what you don't want to do is go back to town meeting later.
Yeah, so I had asked because I feel like if we want to pad the number with an extra 10% construction contingency with just this sort of amorphous number that could cover any number of various things that happen in design or estimating or construction, but really isn't assigned to any one thing, that's fine. But my hope would be that 10% is significantly higher than it would ever be for a project where I would actually be thinking of it as the amount of money that the owner needs to ensure that the cost of change work is covered.
Right.
Correct.
Typically, you're absolutely right, Mark. Where typically on a new construction, we wouldn't see it go over 3%.
But I've seen owners spend their construction contingency, and you won't hear because you don't have such a thing, but they've suddenly said, we want a turf field. And we're willing to take $2 million out of our construction contingency and spend it on a turf field as a change order. You know, we've seen jobs that have come in right on the limit of what the estimated cost was, and the owners say, that's fine. We'll take 2% out of the construction contingency in order to proceed. So it just gives you a little bit of flexibility. And in light of how, again, how concerned people, I mean, we could go down to a 5% construction contingency, but then everybody's going to say, well, gosh, aren't we cutting everything a little close? So it's a place to park. It's a place to park some funds, right? In a kind of responsible way that are accessible to you for any number of different purposes.
And given the volatile,
Because they are below the line, so they're fundamentally something you can choose to spend or not spend on other things.
and given the market,
Ryan, go ahead, Vivian.
no, I was just going to say, given the market, I wouldn't recommend lowering it at this point. And if you do, maybe to an 8%, but nothing less than that.
Yeah, Brian.
So my comment was basically going to be that this 10% design contingency, which would essentially become part of the construction costs at the bid, right? It feels like it's really hefty, excessively so at this point, but the 1% owner contingency for after the job is bid and change orders that are at the owner's election while the project is going seems light. So I was wondering if we, and the reason being because we have such strange supply chain things happening, right? Like we may get into the project and the GC tells us that those RTUs you spec'd are 18 months lead time longer than we thought. We could change them to something else, but that's not what the construction documents say. And then that's a change order that's on us, right?
But it's a construction change. It's a construction change. So it would come out of that construction contingency we're talking about. Typically, the owner's contingency is more for soft cost things. Eversource is charging us twice as much as we ever anticipated as a back charge to bring service to the school. We put a line item in for this. It's going to be $30,000 more. We'll take it out of owner's contingency. As I said before, we've decided we need more chairs in the classrooms. It's an extra $40,000 in furniture. Those are the kind of things typically you see as owner contingency. We missed on the moving allowance. It's going to cost, the moving people say it's going to cost another $40,000 to move the school. Those are typically the kind of things we see for owner's contingencies.
So after the job is bid, if we find out that, the RTUs, the vendors not taking deposits because they don't know when they can ever deliver them, and then we find out they're not available and we change to a different spec of RTU, and there's a bunch of implications because the structure on the roof was meant to support a certain type of unit and it's a different size, and there's all these implications for that. You're saying that would eat into the construction contingency, not the owner contingency in that case?
Correct. Because it's a direct construction cost. It's paying the contractor a premium for something.
So it's not something they carry. That's not a cookie pot for them.
No.
Okay.
This is your money.
I think I agree with Mark's point, though, that design contingency inside the new Lynch Elementary 65 million feels like a lot, but I understand the point.
That's not unusual. That's pretty typical. That's not, I think that the construction contingency is the one that feels like a lot. I think that the design contingency is absolutely a standard
agreed.
Multiplier. It's really more, gee, that's a lot of construction contingency. But again, we're sort of operating on the assumption it's a little bit of a unique moment in time, and this gives you a little bit of a hedge.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Since we lose Jay in 5 minutes and we need to authorize the team to move forward, what I've been dwelling on is this idea of the 10% construction. It's not really 10% of the whole. It's 10% of the whole plus 10%. So that design contingency we talked about sort of escalates that value. I'd be perfectly happy to make a motion that we reduce the construction contingency from 10 to 9%. And we still hold the owner's contingency at 1% if the committee is comfortable with that, and we go with that number.
I don't know, Chris, from 10 to 9 when I see something clear, but I don't want to hold anything, but it would be a, how did it become to be 10 to 9? What the difference is going to be? I don't.
Well, I think for all the reasons we just discussed, that it's quite a bit higher than what you typically see. It's a way to hedge against the market conditions. And my point is, that construction cost has in it that 10% design contingency. So if there's interest in that, I'm happy to make that motion, but otherwise I would want to move on to authorize the team to submit.
Between a 9 and a 10% isn't very much.
I don't see the point. I'll just keep it at 10 unless
The simplest thing to keep is to keep going.
Yeah,
Keep it,
agreed.
keep it at 10.
Agreed,
Okay.
10.
Well, then next we had on the agenda to authorize, and I only pull this up because Jay has to run to like a public bid meeting. I've developed a motion, folks. It's just like the motion I've made in the past for PDP and PSR, which is to move to authorize Project OPM Hill International. Hope you guys can see this, to submit on behalf of the EFPBC, the schematic design submission and local action letter to the MSBA no later than Thursday, September 1st, 2023 as required.
Second.
Who was the second?
I'll let John take it.
Miller.
Thank you.
Chris,
Chris,
sorry, Chris,
year wrong?
Time to go.
Chris, can you
It says
change the date to
23.
2022? Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me. Forgive me. I keep thinking about substantial completion. Good catch. That's what I said, Andy. Thank you.
All right, we'll get the roll call. Frank?
Aye.
Okay. Lisa?
Yes.
Brian?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Geetha?
Aye.
Myself, John Siciliano?
Aye.
Colleen?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
We have John Miller and Don.
Yes, aye.
All right, so we're good on that. Very good.
Yikes.
Okay, I gotta run, unfortunately
Hey, good
tonight.
luck. Good luck.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
with the meeting.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay, see ya.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay.
All right, so what did we have? Let's just, I'll bring this up. I want to be sure everybody can see, bring the agenda back. Hopefully you guys can see that. You see the agenda? Okay. So we had the authorization. And I think as Jay was saying earlier, of the form Gita, what the 3311 or whatever it's called, all the forms and everything that are going to be submitted, we'll make that available on Project Drive for you guys as well. So we move on then to draft language. Meg, I think this is your show, Fall Town Meeting, Project Authorization, and the Debt Exclusion Override. I think Jay shared some of that language with the committee earlier today. Meg, do you want to share screen or anything on this? Or how would you like to review it?
So I'm in Vermont and I have a very weak connection. So if you could share the document.
All right, let me, give me a moment. Let me go hunt it down and then I'll share.
Okay. So
Well,
Mark Toogood, myself and Jay Gonzalez, our bond counsel, worked on drafting, and I'm calling this draft language for the article and the motion for town meeting, as well as the ballot question. And what I would like tonight for the EFPBC to vote is to vote, approval of the draft language, giving Mark and myself permission to continue to work with bond counsel to finalize the language for both town meeting and submission to the MSBA for approval on the ballot question. The
Meg,
language here.
What's not on the docket for tonight, but maybe for the next meeting, is that reappropriation of funds from feasibility. So that's a separate item.
Yeah, that's the next agenda item, but that has not been drafted yet, but we will. That's standard language. So there are no details in here yet. We drafted this before the cost estimate was prepared last week. So we will tweak this as the estimate, once the schematic packages submitted, we will then go ahead and finalize the language.
And Meg, so
So,
what you have now, you have an article, you have a motion, and then there would obviously be background language that gets developed at some point as well.
Yeah.
That's a little bit later date. So again, you're looking for a motion to authorize you to develop final language for fall town meeting for this project funding agreement, and authorize you to work with management and town council to sort of perfect it for the warrant.
for the ballot question, yes.
Well, two things, yes, and then the ballot question,
Okay.
second item as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So that could be a two-part motion if somebody wants to make it. I cannot because I'm now acting as a chair.
So moved.
Can we move to authorize Meg to continue with it? And then when the language is final, just do a final approval? I don't know how we approve language that is not given to us yet. I mean, this looks fine to me,
Well,
but I mean, I think
Don,
everything looks fine, Meg.
Okay, so the ballot question won't change, okay, because there are no details for the reimbursement rate or the dollar amount in the ballot question, so that won't change. The other language, you can see the blanks where they are. And in the motion, it references the reimbursement rate, which when we drafted the language, we didn't know, and then the actual request, however millions of dollars we'll be requesting. So
I know, but is it 75 million?
Is it due October 6th,
the number?
Meg? When is it due?
the select board plans to vote the article and the motion on their September 12th meeting, and then the ballot question on their September 26th meeting.
Okay.
But the ballot question needs to go to the MSBA. When, Vivian?
Vivian, you're
I
on,
make
you're
a
on
motion
mute,
that we
Vivian.
approve the draft languages. I make a motion that we approve the draft language as Meg has submitted it to us, and that once the numbers are in there, we approve it again.
So John, I think Frank had already made the motion that was suggested and it was seconded.
Okay.
Frank, and so we sort of have one item on the table. I do think, and Meg had said this, I think in our prior meetings, John, that I know you weren't able to be with us. She has every intention to bring this back to us when we meet again with the updates. And certainly we can ask Jay to share this, or Jay or Meg could share this by email, with the committee once the blanks are filled in.
Can we just amend the motion to include that caveat?
I'm happy to amend the motion to include that. That should be coming back. Does that make sense, Meg?
Yeah, we'll be meeting the evening that the select board will be voting it.
Right, on the 12th.
Yeah.
You want somebody to second it?
I guess the one clarification, Meg, when the select board votes this, do they need the dollar amounts in it to vote the language?
They won't need they could probably just vote the article language on the 12th. So no. I don't know when they have to vote the motion language, probably not until October. So there might be some time there.
So this doesn't have to go with the September 1st submission to MSBA by any chance, correct?
No.
Not the town meeting language, no.
All right.
So this is being driven by the town calendar.
If you want somebody to second, I'm seconding.
So I'll plan to bring it back on the 12th. I don't know if we'll have, I'm assuming we'd have dollar amounts then.
I'm not positive you'll have a dollar amount at that point. I mean, you might have a dollar amount for the.
My amendment only included that Meg would come back to update the
Right,
EFPBC.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if by the September 12th, Meg, you'll have all the appropriate numbers to bring it back, but sometime in October you will.
May I remind the committee what Hill has pledged to help us do is to pin down the MSBA on reimbursement rate by, I think we said, the end of the 3rd week of September. Vivian thinks that's doable, but we can only squeeze the turnip so hard. I mean, as soon as we can get that number confirmed from them, we will. We know what it is as a baseline. It's that 32.47, whatever it is. We know it'll be higher because of some of our design decisions, but if we can get it in time, we will. If not, I mean, we'll, as soon as we get it, the numbers will sort of populate. John, you had a question.
It just seems to me to be confusing. All we need to do is approve the draft language. This is a draft. The lawyers are going to fiddle with it. The bond counsel is going to fiddle with it. The numbers are going to change. Let's just move to approve the draft, and with a final to be brought back to us. It's very simple.
I think that's what the motion was. Meg's not going to do any of this on her own. She's going to work with management and council to develop this language, and we're authorizing her to do that on our behalf.
Of course, of course.
So I agree. I think it's pretty simple.
Great.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second, and Meg will get this back to us. And if it's available before the 12th, I'm sure she or Jay could circulate it to us by email. If there's no other comment, I want to do a roll call. And forgive me if I leave anybody out, because my screen, I think I'm seeing everybody, but I might miss someone. John Miller.
Yes.
All right, I'm a yes. Geeta.
Yes.
Todd.
Aye.
Pauline.
Aye.
Brian Carlisle. Aye. Don.
Yes.
Frank. Yes,
Aye.
or yes, you made the motion. Mark.
Aye.
John Siciliano.
Yes.
And I think I've got everybody on the committee.
Oh,
Please speak up.
Lisa's here.
Oh, there
So
you are,
that's a
Lisa.
yes.
Sorry, you're not on my grid until you speak up
Oh.
and then you show up. I'm sorry
Oh,
about that.
sorry. Okay, sorry.
No,
about
it's all
that.
right. It's just the way my grid looks. When people go silent, they drop off. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so it's unanimous. I will go back to, let me stop sharing for a moment. If I can figure out how to do that. Stop share. Okay. And I will share the agenda again. Okay. So Meg, for our next meeting on the 12th, you expect to have some draft language for that reappropriation from feasibility?
Yes.
Okay. And I would just remind the committee, and Vivian was sort of touching on this earlier, we have to include, for MSBA's purposes, when we talk about the full project cost, that includes the expense of the feasibility study. But that's already been funded. But not only has it already been funded, we actually allocated $1.5 million, and we haven't come close to spending that, which is why that article coming for fall town meeting is important, because in essence, we're going to take some money that we've already appropriated and we can put it towards the project. So it doesn't, I'm not sure there's a clean way to kind of, it's not like that reduces our overall project cost. It reduces how much we're ultimately going to borrow. That's the way I think about it, which is good. I mean, it could be 6 figures. So just remind the committee of that. Winchester High School, I know Chris Conway was on board. Frank, I don't know, you able to elevate Chris? Any update on the high school?
Yep, just a second. Chris, just promoted you. Don't let it go to your head.
I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because it affects my view of everybody there. Now I can see Lisa too. Sorry about that again, Lisa. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good evening.
Anything on the high school?
Only update I have is that we met Consigly's crew. We had about six or so people on the roof last Thursday morning, along with Meg and Pete Lawson. We had quite a crew up there, and it on the surface went pretty well. Initially,
is that a pun?
Initially, it seemed on the surface they seemed very receptive to the conditions being presented. I am waiting on a repair plan from them right now. Actually, I just emailed them about an hour ago looking to see if I can get that ASAP. We have a day of work scheduled for Friday because school is out, and the whole crew that was there was very receptive to, incredibly receptive actually, to hitting that date and bringing in a lot of resources to resolve as many of the issues as possible in one day. And I suspect, based on what they were talking about for headcount, I think it'll be a good day as long as they come through with what they were talking about for labor actually being there. So tentatively, decent prognosis for getting some resolution to this, but should know a little better by the next meeting. Hopefully everything will be in place by then. And for sure by Friday.
That's encouraging. Any questions for Chris?
I just have a question, Chris. Is there any relation to the previous report that we had it done maybe by SGH or anything, whatever happening now, or that those are two separate issues? You know,
So
in the past.
we are right now keeping those two issues a little separate because they are separate. They're not, one is not part and parcel to the other. So we are going to try to keep them a little separate. The discussions, the planning that was going on regarding the ongoing maintenance plan and all that for the things that were done to resolve the leaking, we have put on the back burner for a little bit right now, so everybody can focus their energies on the more acute issue at hand right now.
Okay, all right.
And Chris, were the people you met with, to the extent they had an opinion, are folks comfortable with how we're operating that equipment right now, given some of that deterioration that just presented itself? Any specific recommendations, like in the interim, on what we should be doing differently?
No, and it took a bit of discussion on the roof of showing, kind of going back and forth and showing them some of the less obvious issues, but the more glaring issues, there was actually a lot of telephone calls being made and point-to-point conversations happening in the whole group. But we had, representatives from the builder, the mechanical contractor, the equipment provider, the controls provider, all represented there, some by more than one person. So as I said, there was a lot of back and forth conversation going on, but no discussion regarding the way the equipment was being run. It was sort of focused around trying to figure out why it happened. But all of the focus seemed to be on resolving the current conditions.
Okay, that's great. The only other question I have is unrelated to this. On our bathroom project, I understand we were making some progress. I think Meg told us last time the contractor was either in the building or imminently coming in the building. You were going to be making some spaces available to them. I'm just curious to know if we're making progress there, and if so, is it time for Jen Littlefield from TAP A to get back out and take a look at the work, and kind of where do we stand?
I think there were a couple of miscues on the buyout of it, but they were out Friday, sort of unnoticed. They were on the phone with me at 6 o'clock in the morning they were there looking to deliver it, and without any warning. But they were not prepared to actually install. So 5 of them have been installed around the building. The significant balance has to come with some more buyout to make that happen. The installer was not prepared or capable of creating openings in the walls. So they installed the surface mount devices, the 5 surface mount devices that were in the bill of work. They installed them, but they were not capable of installing the roughing in the openings and then installing it. So I think there's got to be a little bit more work done in the background before the rest of that can happen.
Okay, and in the interim, other accessories or equipment that showed up and were delivered but are not installed, we're making space for those in a safe space somewhere, I presume?
Yeah, they're at the school.
Okay, cool. All right. That was all I had. Anybody else have any other questions for Chris on the high school? All right. Chris, thank you.
Yep.
Let me share. Yeah, Meg, did you have anything you wanted to add on the high school?
No, just that I never, ever want to climb up that ladder again. Or actually, it was climbing down that was horrific. Yeah.
Thank you for your service. We don't have any payments or authorizations tonight. Is that right, Meg?
No, that's correct.
Okay. So next meeting dates, like we said, we're going to plan on September 12th at 6 p.m. That is also co-scheduled with the select board meeting. So we'll try to keep that agenda somewhat short at 6 so people can watch the select board if they would like. The agenda just says others for future meetings. And what I wanted to throw out to this community, this committee to consider is that moving this election to November 8th means it's going to come very quickly. I think it would be helpful for us to think about, I had this conversation earlier today with Jay, we need to have some community meetings about this project, much like, some of you will recall we had a kickoff back in November. Those were officially posted as EFPBC meetings. We did one during the day that was convenient for folks. We did one in the evening for those for whom it was going to be more convenient. And I'd like us to start thinking about something similar, maybe towards the end of September. Frank, that might first be physically at Lynch and really focused on the Lynch community, but of course open to anyone. And then another meeting in October, maybe something like second week of October, maybe third week of October, same thing. And then because both the election and fall town meeting are going to be almost on top of one another, town manager required by charter, she has a hearing on the warrant. This is obviously a big project, a lot of money. It might be something for us to consider, maybe a public hearing specifically tailored to town meeting that we could hold as we approach town meeting as well. So maybe, 3 meetings in all. But I would remind the committee that the election is, I think, 7 business days after the board votes the project on October 26th. So it's just going to go so fast before our eyes. So I don't have any specific dates laid out there yet. I was presuming I might work with Frank and kind of look at the district calendar and see what conflicts kind of needed to be avoided. Maybe we send out a doodle poll or something and see what folks are interested in. We could certainly post the meeting as an EFPBC meeting. If we have a quorum, we call it to order. If we don't, no big deal. It's basically an informational meeting, much like we did to kick off the project. So those were my thoughts. I don't know what other people think.
I like the doodle poll plan, Chris.
Okay. So with that, the only other item is an adjournment if somebody wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Second.
Second, yeah.
9 seconds. I'll do a roll call. I'm voting aye. Geeta?
Aye. Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Colleen?
Aye.
John? No, Brian's yes. Frank?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John Siciliano?
Aye.
John Miller?
Aye.
And Lisa?
Yes.
I see you this time, Lisa. I apologize. All right, we're adjourned at 7:19. Thank you all
Okay.
very much. We'll
Thanks,
see you on the
everyone.
12th.
Have a
Bye.
nice
Thanks,
long
everybody.
weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yes, good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good luck.